There we go.
Hello, everybody. This is Francesca from the Educator's Room. Tonight, I have two rock star educators, Lori and Jennifer from Kansas. I'm here in Atlanta. Jennifer is in California, Northern California, and we're going to talk about starting the new year right. So, ladies, can you quickly reintroduce yourselves?
Hi, I'm Lori Rice. I teach fourth grade. This will
Hi,
be
I'm Jennifer Wolf. I
Go ahead. It's okay. Hello? Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, Lori?
yes.
Okay, go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Okay, I am Lori Rice. I teach
okay.
fourth grade.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Hello?
It's going in and out for me.
It's going in and out for you, Jennifer?
Yeah. Oh, there now. I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So, Lori, reintroduce yourself. It's okay.
I'm Lori Rice. I teach fourth grade in Kansas. This will be my 21st year in education.
Hey, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Wolf, and I'm entering my 26th year as a middle school teacher, and I live in Northern California.
Yay. So we had a little bit of a technology snafu. So that's why we're kind of like trying to figure things out, but it's okay. So one of the things that we want to talk about tonight is what are some things that for new teachers and for veteran teachers to kind of start the year off right. I'm representing high school. Jennifer represents middle school. Lori represents elementary school. So let's start with talking about it is school starts for me August 8th, for Lori August 11th, for you, Jennifer, August 25th, correct? Around that time?
24, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the things that teachers should be doing right now,
Something
knowing
like
start
that. I haven't gotten that.
in the next week or so? What are some things that teachers should do to kind of get ready? Because for me, I go to the sales papers, look for school supplies, those type of things. What are some things that you recommend teachers doing, both of you, to get ready for the school year right now, especially new teachers?
The easy thing to do is to decorate your room, and as an elementary teacher, you do want to do that. You want your room to be open and inviting. You want to think about making it welcoming to students and to families, and that's an easy thing for new teachers to focus on because that's something they know. And so that is a very important part. With the sale ads, I went out today to Topeka and bought notebooks. They were 17 cents, and so I grabbed 10 extra. You always want to think about having what your students need available in your classroom. And so for those students that are coming that don't have a notebook, that don't have the supplies, you want to pick up those extras while they're on sale now so that you can have them and they're available, because you want all of your kids to feel welcome in your room. And that's the biggest thing you can do to start out the year, is to make them all feel special.
And elementary school, high school teachers are afraid of elementary school teachers because we see the decorations and we totally get intimidated. So in my last school, we had a retired elementary school teacher that would come in and do all of our boards. Our principal paid her. She would come and she would
Wow.
decorate. She would decorate the whole hall, and it would be beautiful. And we would keep those bulletin boards up all year. We would use the same thing. We were like, just keep it here. So
And
Jennifer, go ahead.
I think that's an important point, Fran, especially for new teachers, is to think about things that are going to sustain your year. You will not have the time, the energy, or the interest, frankly, to change a bulletin board once a month.
Yeah.
And so you need to pick things that are going to be quick or can sustain the whole entire year, because it won't be fun in October.
Yeah. And an elementary school teacher told me the trick of using a sheet on
Yeah.
the board. And
Mm-hmm.
we didn't understand. We were like, "What?" She was like, "Yeah, you just put a sheet up." And we were like, "Oh, it was funny." What do you do, Jennifer, as a middle school teacher? Like, what are some things that you do to get ready?
Well, I think middle school teachers are kind of walking the balance between some that are former elementary school teachers who really invest a lot of time in setting up the classroom environment, and then there's the high school people who aren't really into that so much. And I'm kind of right in the middle. I want my classroom to look nice. I want it to look organized so that the kids know that I take it seriously, but I honestly don't stress so much about the perfect bulletin boards up. mean, for one thing, I have maybe 125 students, so to personalize something, that's not going to happen. And I also kids to do. One of the activities we do at the beginning of the year in team building is things that they put on the wall themselves, and to represent them. And that way, I don't have to worry about doing that. I want my kids to walk in and know that I'm present, that I've prepared personally stress out about having everything perfect in my room.
Yeah. And as a new teacher coming in, I'm thinking about, on Pinterest right now, there are probably millions of back to school night, templates, all of these things. What do you say to a new teacher who right now is up to 3 o'clock in the morning every night on Pinterest, finding things to do with their class, and they're feeling overwhelmed? Like, because I feel overwhelmed, and I've been in the classroom 15 years. I can't imagine what a new teacher,
Yeah.
like, how do you manage that? How do you go on Pinterest and find cute stuff and say, oh, I can use this, and not be overwhelmed or not be broke or not be just like, I can't even look at it again? Lori?
I think just like anything, you have to know your personal limits and you have to set those, and that's really important to establish in August. You really do need to think about the most important goals that you have and what's going to get you the most bang for your buck, and focus some time on that. And you also have to be willing to walk away from something and say, you know what, it's okay, it's still going to be there tomorrow. Because you're right, it can completely consume your entire life if you let it as a teacher. So you do have to be willing to say, I am going to give this time to myself, because if you don't, then you won't be healthy and you won't be giving your best. At the end of the day, if you have loved your students and if you have given them your best, it's okay to get off of Pinterest and to leave some things undone and to go to bed, because you do that.
Yeah, and Jennifer, because even for middle
I totally agree with
you. Yeah, go ahead. Jennifer? I think she's having some technical issues. I totally think, one of the things that I think that Pinterest has done, it's great. Like, I love it for recipes and I love it for all these other things. But you get overwhelmed because you don't even know where to start. Like, back to school night. There's 3,000 things you can do for back to school night that totally overwhelm you and make you think, is this something that I even want to do? So, Jennifer, what do you do as for a middle school teacher? Like, how do you kind of go through that? Or do you not, or for new teachers, do you say, hey, don't even look at Pinterest the first week. Go to, like, your mentor teacher. What's your advice for that?
I think Pinterest has some really cute stuff, but I think that teachers really need to set healthy boundaries for themselves. And if they're staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning, stuffing goodie bags and trying to fold some kind of origami swan or something, I think really that what they're going to be able to give to their kids in the classroom that day is just going to be secondary. So I think setting boundaries is such an important part about being a teacher. When I started, I didn't have my own children and I wasn't married. And I think if you're a young teacher, you have more time to do those things. But if you're
Hello. Okay.
you've got to set boundaries for yourself to be able to stay healthy.
Yeah, and being healthy is really important because sometimes you're exhausted before the school year even starts. We have another writer from TER that just joined us, Michelle. Michelle is a 5th grade math teacher. Hey, Michelle.
Yes. Hi. How are you all?
So we're representing Atlanta, Kansas, Texas, and California. Man, that's a lot. So Michelle, what do you do? What is your advice for new teachers as the school year starts, getting ready? What do you do now in July to get you ready for the next 2 weeks?
For the most part, I tell teachers to begin with their whatever scope and sequence that they have, and really look at that and start there, and then find materials that match. Pinterest can be overwhelming because, as you know, new teachers want to please, please, please. But I do tell them to, well, really in your first year, less is more.
Yeah.
So find things that work, and that's what you use the whole year.
And I think you brought up an interesting point, because a lot of times I think we overwhelm teachers with, we give them this room, and when I say we, just, education period, we give them this room, we give them the textbooks, we give them the materials, and then we give them this huge scope and sequence for high school, probably like the first 9 weeks, and teachers are sitting there like, okay, okay, and they don't really, and they get it, but they don't get it. So I have to ask you this, Lori, because I think it's really, as an elementary school teacher, let's say that I'm a new teacher and I'm about to start, I'm in second grade and I'm not departmentalized and I have all these different subjects that I have to teach. So once I've kind of limited myself on Pinterest, I kind of know what I'm going to do, I have all my things together, how do I start attacking the curriculum when I have that many subjects to teach and teach well?
I always tell my student teachers that you need to start with what you're weakest in. So whether it's just personally you don't care for the subject, or if it's just a subject that you know content-wise you're weakest in, you need to start there, because obviously that's the one that needs your most energy. And so if you spend your time working on that subject you feel weakest in, then your stronger subjects you shouldn't need to spend as much time on. And so that's advice I always give to my student teachers. I think another thing that's really important is to pay attention to the people in your building. Who do the other teachers go to? Who does the principal talk to in faculty meetings? Those are your rock stars, and you want to have a group of 5 or 6 rock stars. You don't want to identify one teacher. You want to identify who's my tech go-to person, who's my math go-to person, who's my reading go-to person, and you want to go to them. And you want to ask them what resources do they use, what's the best thing they do, and just like Michelle said, you want to find that one thing that's going to work, and you want to focus on that. You don't have to have a new trick every day.
Yeah. And so, and I think, Michelle, I think I've heard you wrote an article about this, about, math. For me, if I was an elementary school teacher, math would be my weakest area to have to teach. And so I think a lot of people aren't honest with teachers and saying, whatever is your weakest area, it's okay to be weak in an area. That's the area that you start with. Jennifer and I are similar in that you teach English and Avid, right?
Right, English and Avid and reading.
Reading.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, for your students, as you start thinking about, getting ready content-wise, how would you tell a new teacher to tackle the scope and sequences of 3 preps? Because that reading is a beast within itself, if taught correctly, right?
It is. Yeah, it is tough to have multiple preps like that, especially for a new teacher. And unfortunately in California, that seems to be who gets all of the multiple preps, or all the new people. I would say, like I said, find out who are the people in your school, first of all, that are teaching those classes, and who are the people that you can go to for help. In California, we have, every new teacher is assigned a mentor, and so to really develop a connection with your mentor teacher is important. I also think find out how you learn best. Some teachers don't really enjoy getting in groups with other teachers. They might rather learn over the internet, or get on Twitter chats, or find someone in a professional learning community that way. But reaching out, observing people, what you want to do, I think that's a good place to start.
That's really interesting. Michelle, you just led a pretty big professional learning in Texas for pre-K teachers, I believe.
I did.
What are some of the things, because I totally, when I was an instructional coach, there were teachers who just, especially my new teachers, if we were a whole group, they just kind of shut down, because they were like, sometimes it was personality with the older teachers, with the veteran teachers. Other times it was content. They were nervous about people not thinking they didn't know content. And then sometimes they just didn't learn that way. So what do you do if you are the mentor teacher? That's the baby. The mentor teacher, and you have this new teacher. She's going to teach 5th grade, and she says, Michelle, I am weak in math. What do you do to get her ready? It's July the 13th. What do you do to get her ready for school in 2 weeks? And she has this big curriculum. She has her curriculum, and she has her Pinterest stuff, but math is just like, I don't know what to do.
All right, so she needs, we start day by day. In math, you know, it has multiple layers. And since at fifth grade, there are multiple skills that's that on grade level skill, but they also have those foundation skills that they're supposed to be bringing from the previous grade levels. What I do is I always start with a review with those skills like multiplication, division. That's where we start. We always start as if the children are blank slates because it's easier to pick up the pace than it is to slow down and say, oh, they didn't get it, because once it's out there, there's no taking it back. Just to start their review. And what it does is it kind of jumpstarts your own brain so you can make connections with what the next skill is in the curriculum guide. Fifth grade is a little tricky, and even the lower grades are tricky because the curriculum, it makes assumptions that the children are on grade level, and they never are. There's very few children that are on grade level in math. Very few. All of them come with deficits, and even your GT kids have deficits with like the problem solving area. So that's how we start off, and it's a gradual process, and then you speed up as needed. But that's where we started.
So let me ask you, we've talked about what teachers should do. We've said, you know, make sure that you're not on Pinterest at 3 o'clock in the morning. You kind of attack the content. So what are some of the things, well, hold on, we've talked about what they should do and what they shouldn't do. But when school is about to start and they're looking for resources, what's the number one place you've gotten resources that will not break a new teacher? Like, what do you tell, once they have the curriculum and once they have their, you know, what do they go for resources that won't break them, that doesn't cause, where can they go? What are some, so I'm going to start with middle school and then just go to elementary school. Like, what are some sites that you know of that you're like, this is awesome, teachers should go here? What should they do?
Well, I'm really into HyperDocs right now, and there's a great site called Teachers Give Teachers. And what I like about that, it's a Twitter site, and I think they've started a Facebook group now too. But if you're interested in technology and you're using Google Apps, this is a site where teachers can go and share things that they have made, share links to different Google Docs or Google slideshows or any kind of, I just saw one today on a Google, I think it was on Maps for the lightning thief. And even if you go on there and you don't see something that's perfect for what you want, you can get ideas there and then take that and modify it for what you want, what you're going to be teaching in your classroom. I definitely don't think teachers should be going and spending tons of money. I think teachers pay teachers is awesome, but you have to be careful on there about what you're buying and looking at, you know, trying the free stuff and then looking at, oh, I think this really worked for me that was free. Let me look at this seller's store and see if it's going to be the kind of quality that I want to use, or if it's going to work with the standards that you're teaching in your school.
Yeah, that's really cool. I started looking at HyperDocs when you wrote that article about it. And guys, I'll put it in here. That's really cool because that's a great way to kind of give. Because if you're a new teacher, and in some schools, I think in Mississippi, you might start with like $28,000. You don't have the money to go and buy all the resources. And God forbid, if you're married and you have kids, you don't have any extra money. You're just kind of, so that's a really good tool. Elementary, go ahead.
And when I started in middle school and I was a reading teacher, I needed a classroom library. And so one place to go, of course, are thrift stores to find your books, or even your local library when they have their library sale. You know, don't go out and buy all your books on Amazon. I've seen a lot of teachers set up different kind, GoFundMe accounts or things like that where they have people who are donating for setting up libraries or setting up special projects, but really avoid that temptation to go out and spend hundreds of dollars. It's really easy to do, but I think that also sets a standard in education that we really need to break, that teachers are responsible for funding their own classrooms.
That's a really good point, because I can remember when I first got here, we would get a debit card from the governor with $100, and that's all we got. and people are like, "Oh, you guys get $100," and you're like, "That's paper. That's just paper."
Yeah.
And so we really had to get creative with borrowing things and making our own things. So elementary school, what are some resources for what? Because you teach fourth, but you also taught. What other grades have you taught?
I've taught kindergarten and first grade as well.
Kindergarten and first. What are some resources that you like that new teachers can get to and use, and it's not going to break their wallets?
Yeah, I'm all about free. I don't pay for things very much in education. I'm horrible at remembering sites, but one that I really like is the Florida Reading Center, I think is what it's called. They have tons of things, especially if you need center ideas for reading. So you've got things to do while your kids are in guided reading. I think it's called the Florida Reading Center, and they have lots of printables, lots of resources that you can use. I know it goes K through 5. It may go beyond that. That has just great resources for reading activities. Let's see, Warsaw schools, I don't know where they're out of, but they have an excellent group of guided reading materials available, so you can get guided reading lessons from them. And that's Warsaw schools. I think it's Warsaw K-12. Wonderful guided reading lessons. They have lots of detail in them. They have lots of vocabulary and questions. They're one of my go-tos when I'm looking for guided reading lessons. Those are the two that I use quite often for reading. I'm not coming up with a math. Michelle's more of an expert on that, I'm sure.
Michelle, I know you have some resources for.
I do. I was looking around, trying not to pull them all out at once, but the Ames Foundation is one of my go-to resources, especially for first-year teachers, because what Ames is an integration between math and science. It's activities integrating math and science. And I bought these trusty little discs. I buy things. It makes my life a whole lot easier, and I use them for 100 years, and I get my money's worth. So I buy stuff. And for math, it's a little different because we cannot make everything. We can't. And it's about skill and creating things that are tailored to the kids' needs. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of math websites that will basically meet the standard for your state because everybody does it differently. That's why I wish we would have stayed with Common Core because it made it a lot easier. But these are easy because what Ames Foundation has done, they have packaged their activities into one disc. And these discs cost like $20. Oh. And they're actually activities that you can, that are aligned. The Ames has been around since I first started teaching. And they have done, their lessons are timeless. So if I was a first year teacher, I would invest in these. Also invest in Bill Davison. Bill Davison, he does the fluency drills with the kids. It's a different way of doing it. It's out in the garage. But he's one of the new guys out of, I think, California. He has those fluency drills. But problem solving and fluency are the two things that they should be focusing on. Everything else, as they say in Louisiana, is lagniappe.
So let me ask you this. So we've talked about resources. We've talked about, managing your time on sites like not Teachers Pay Teachers, but on Pinterest. What are some of the things, one of the biggest lessons for me as a first-year teacher was the parents, was navigating parents and navigating expectations that I had and they had and the principal, like everybody's expectations. What are some of the things that teachers can do starting right off, other than back to school night, they can do to kind of form their relationships with their parents? Because I always noticed in high school, my worst kids, many times my parents, they mirrored the behavior their parents did. And so I always had to have a bag of tricks to make sure that the parent was advocating what I was advocating for. So what do you do? What do you tell a new teacher who is saying, I'm going to this school, I don't know much about it, but I want to make sure the parents are supportive. What are some tips that you guys would give them? Jennifer?
I really think in middle school it's a time when parents need to learn how to let go and watch from a bit of a distance. And it's really hard, especially if it's their first year when the kids have just left elementary and they're used to one or two teachers, and now they've got a whole slew of teachers that they're navigating. I tell my parents to please let their child advocate for themselves. Please let your child email me first if they have a question, that I'm going to reply back to them first before I'm going to reply back to a parent. I talk to parents about asking their kids about not just what did you do today, but actually taking a look in their planners and saying, oh, tell me about the giver. What are you learning about in that story? Or try and make questions that are really direct and not just yes or no kind of answers. But the whole trick in middle school is getting parents to learn that kids have to be the ones that are accountable for their education, and that they're the ones going to class, and that so therefore the kids need to be the ones who are managing the problems as they come up, not the parents.
All right. Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because in high school we have those parents that are, the problem was the opposite, is that parents totally took their hands off into the end. And then it was like, you have to still monitor them, but they're adults. So in elementary school, what do you guys do? Michelle, what do you do to forge good relationships with parents? And we're not talking about the parents who are going to be involved always, but the parents who are kind of very standoffish. Maybe they didn't have a good school experience. They're angry at the last teacher. How do you forge relationships with those parents?
With those parents, it's kind of tricky, but I just kind of figured out if you show that you genuinely care about their child, the parent normally comes around. I can remember I had a little boy in Louisiana, a little fifth grader. He should be in about 9th or 10th grade now, and he had gotten put out of school. You know, they haze all the new teachers to the school, so they give you all the kids that were expelled. So I had the classroom with all those little people in there. But he was a really smart kid, but he was just, his behavior was less than stellar. So his mom was used to coming to the school and going to bat for him, even though he was in the wrong. So when they told me she was like that, I was like, okay. But when I talked to her, I would always say he's a very intelligent child.
Yeah.
I like having him in my class. He adds to discussion. However, he will not be able to get into any magnet program, no matter how smart he is, if his behavior, if he doesn't get it under control. Yeah. So after we had conversations, she felt like I cared for her son, and I realized that I recognized something in him. And the parents, I think generally the parents know that the children are not keeping up their end of the bargain, but that's all they know to do is to go to bat for their own children. Yeah. And and most of them, they don't have the resources or any other people to reach out to help them with the children. So they defend them. But she and I never had any issues, and even the parent liaison at the school, at the end of the school, the kids had done ran me ragged. And she said, you really did a good job with them. And for her to say that, I knew they had set me up.
Lori, what do you do to forge? Because Michelle, you're in a big city in Texas. Jennifer, are you in a big city in California?
I'm in a district. We have about 60,000 people in our town. It's a university town, so I have about 90,000 when you add the students in.
Okay. So Laura, you're coming from a small town.
Yes, so we only have 5,000.
5,000?
5,000.
So it's one elementary, one middle, one high?
We actually have 2 elementary. We have a pre-K 2nd grade building and a 3rd through 5th grade building.
Okay.
And then middle school and high school.
So how do you, because for my kids, I don't see my parents. Sometimes if I go to a certain shopping place, I might see former parents, but I don't see them unless I want to see them. How do you navigate making sure that the parents understand that you're there for that positive relationship? How do you do that in a small town?
I think in a small town it's probably simpler because you know the families. I have many instances where I have had siblings. Last year I had the third sibling in two different families. So I already had older siblings 2 years in a row. And so that happens often. Now we do have 6 sections, so I don't have all 4th graders go through. But we have these relationships. I see them down at the park. I see them at the grocery store. I see them at the 4th of July celebration. Yeah. So I do have that as a benefit. I'm a real big proponent in just being very transparent in your classroom and letting parents know what you're doing. I personally do that through a blog and through a Facebook page. Yeah. And then I also think that our kids are our biggest resource. If there's something that I want them to be using at home, I make sure we use it at school so that they'll go home and go, oh my gosh, check this out, it was so cool. Yeah. And I use them as my bridge as much as I can. Now, you are going to have your kids that don't have the resources, that don't have the technology, that don't have the internet, but I think they still go home and they talk about it. And just like you said, Michelle, if those parents know you love their kids and you're excited about what you're doing, you're going to get them on your side. And they're going to see that you're coming from a good place, even if you don't agree about how you're getting there.
Yeah. Right. And I think for us, like, it's, you know, and teachers have to understand you're going to get parents who may not be outwardly friendly, and that's okay. They all have their own experiences. You just have to make sure that you're respectful and that you are clear about what their child needs or doesn't need. So I want to transition to something, because this is something as a new teacher I struggled with. What do you do when you start teaching and you're giving these assessments, your diagnostics, and you realize that a child is severely behind? I'm a new teacher. The child's in 7th grade. They're reading on a 3rd, 4th grade level. They're severely behind. What do you tell a new teacher who, as they're, you know, they've survived the first week, they have their room decorated, they're ready to go? What do you tell a teacher to do when they give these exams and they have kids in their class who are not on level? Because what I've found in high school teachers will say for the entire year, and this is just my experience of being in high school, will say, that child's not on level, the child will not pass. Because we are used to just saying it, giving them the grade accordingly, and, you know, whatever happens, happens. But in elementary school, it's a little different. You can't just, I mean, I'm sure you can fail them, but what do you do? How can you prepare a teacher for that? And what are some things they should do? And what's the mindset they have with those children? Because in high school, we're trying to change the mindset of they'll read on a 4th grade level, they can never pass, you know, or they're not learning. So what do you do for an elementary and middle school? Start with elementary.
Hopefully your school has an MTSS program, so you've got that multi-tier system of support set up so that there is an option. Because what you obviously need to do is find out what does that student know, and then build up on that. And sometimes that means dropping back a grade level or 2 grade levels. And Michelle talked about earlier where, yes, they should come into 5th grade knowing division and multiplication, but we know that's not the truth. We know that there are skills they're missing, and you have to go back and find those skills, and that may mean looking at standards that are below your standards. And you have to meet that child where they are and help them move forward and help them see growth and help them see gain and help them feel successful, which may mean in an elementary classroom either providing them with physical support from another adult, whether that be a para or a reading assistant or a parent, or it might also be altering some of the material that they're getting, because if they can't read and they spend their entire day feeling frustrated, you're not going to get anywhere, and that's not fun for anybody.
So you can't, and this is what high school, and I can only speak for high school, so when we know a child doesn't read well, we just talk about it all day. And we really do. We talk about it all day, and we're like, you know he can't read. You know he can't read. You know he can't read the standard. So in 5th grade, Michelle, what do you tell a teacher? Because it's overwhelming, and we just had a Facebook, somebody on Facebook comment that they had some kids who did not pass the end of the year assessment, and they were really upset that the kid hadn't passed it, but through talking with the lady, the kids had grown. They had grown from where they were. So what do you tell a teacher who's going to get those kids in August? What do you tell a teacher? What do they do?
I actually responded to her, but I have been so busy that I did not follow up with it. I normally do. I responded to her, and I said, first of all, it shouldn't have been a surprise that the children failed, okay? Because your qualitative data as well as your quantitative data will tell you what the children are doing. One thing that I find that teachers do, they don't believe it. Believe it. If they are making a 67 all year long, they are going to make a 67 on the test. And if that's not passing, they will not pass. Now you pray and hope, because that's what we do, teachers. We hope for the best, but that's not going to change the numbers. So look at what the children are doing. And I noticed she said she worked her butt off. Well, your student work is your measure, because that's what's going to tell you what the children are going to do. With new teachers, when children are behind, I work in an urban setting, and we don't always have help.
Yeah.
So you're the Lone Ranger, you're the cavalry. But there's safety in numbers. You go to your teacher. That's why having relationships with your teachers in an urban setting is critical, because we can laugh. We don't cry. We go have tea on Friday, but we don't cry. We laugh. And you get, I started out teaching first grade, so I know how to teach children how to read. And I tell teachers, if a child is behind, your intervention is in the grade below. You go talk to the teacher below, and you get some work. You don't reinvent the wheel. Well, below us is fourth grade. You go down, if it's not working in fourth, we can go knock on the third grade teacher's door and say, hi, what are you using for your children? And that's why relationships are important, because everything that you need really is in the school if your school is collaborating and working together. So that's my belief, and it has worked for me. Like when I responded to her, my kids were very low this year, but most of them hit their growth target. And I was telling you all, I think in the Facebook group, that my special ed kids, 7 out of 10, met their growth target. That was on the standardized test. But I make predictions. I predicted that 48% of my kids were going to pass, and they came in at 51. So it was in that range. But I knew where they were because the numbers were telling me. And I told my principal, and he was praying, but it doesn't change anything. But at the end of the day, are they growing is what matters, regardless of whether they're proficient on the test or not.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, Michelle. I'm sorry, Jennifer. You're going to middle school, and so you know, middle school. I'm sure the kids are coming in just like they come into elementary and they come into high school. What do you tell a teacher who's going to teach reading next year, and half of her class is reading on a third grade level, and the seventh grade class? What should they do?
That's the hard part of being a teacher right there. And what should they do? Well, it depends on what kind of a school you have. Like Michelle was saying, you know, relationships are important. In my school, I am the reading teacher. There's nobody else. So it's me. And I think in middle school, a lot of kids have been able to kind of fake their way through. And I really noticed this last year, kids having much more trouble in math. And I said, you know why they're having trouble in math now, right? It's because they're reading below grade level. And with the new Common Core textbooks, they can't read them. So, you know, that's just one example. And I think that in my reading class, I really I'm honest with the kids. Like Michelle said, they're not all going to be up magically at grade level. They're not going to go from second grade all the way up to seventh grade level in 1 year. But talking to the kids, look, this is where you are. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to help you achieve more. And whatever tricks I can come up with, like Michelle said, if I can go to the English learner teacher and say, what do you have? Or I can go to the resource teacher and say, what do you have? Whatever I can do to help the kids pass their class. If I have a ninth grader that's trying to read Romeo and Juliet, but they're reading at a fourth grade level, I've got to really do some tricks. And I also need to talk to their classroom, their English teacher, and say, do you know that this child is reading at a fourth grade level? And I really appreciate what Michelle is saying, is being honest about it. Like, if a kid's reading at that level, they're not going to perform at the same level as some other kid who's reading at a 12th grade level. Yeah. And so we need to modify what our expectations are so that they come out not only moving up, but feeling like they have achieved something. Because the worst thing that can happen in middle school is a kid starts thinking, well, I'm stupid, I can't read, I'm a dummy, and there you go. And then you lost them for high school.
Yeah.
So I think you need to balance that.
And we kind of see that on the other end with kids coming. And I've noticed, like, most of the times when I would have my conversations with my students about their reading levels, they knew. Mm-hmm. They knew, and it wasn't a surprise. They were waiting for me to tell them that I knew. And so I would say, this is where you tested. This is, and I brought it always back to that. So if you're not doing your work, we can't move you in this direction, and there's going to be, consequences. So I think that's really important, because a lot of times, I think sometimes we try to hide things from kids. Right. When we start to get older, especially 5th, 6th, 7th, especially in high school, those conversations are important because it helps the kids know that you know what they're talking about. Because they usually, 9 times out of 10, if I ask a child and I'll say, did you have trouble in middle school? Yeah, I had trouble. And they know, and they're just waiting for you to tell them. Which I guess brings my... Go ahead, Jennifer.
There's also a big correlation that I've seen in between behavior issues and kids who are low-level readers. And I've been working on this project for a while, and I can look at the kids in our school who are reading below grade level, and they're either special ed resource kids, or they're EL kids, English learner kids, or they're kids who are in and out of the classroom so much because they're compensating for their inability to read by acting out or doing behaviors that the teacher doesn't understand why they're doing it. They're just say, well, you're done. And
right.
And really that makes me really super sad.
Yeah. And I think, kids, I think sometimes we've become so focused on tests and who can pass a test that we don't necessarily figure out what the kids need and just try to give it to them. And it's not teachers' fault. And especially new teachers need to know this. You're not going to be able to get through every piece of the curriculum that is prescribed by the district, especially if you're an elementary school teacher. I know Michelle and Lori can agree on this. You have 4 subjects, 4 scope and sequences. You can't get through all of that. So you kind of have to figure out what you can teach and how you can teach it well, opposed to you trying to do so much. Am I right or wrong?
Definitely. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
It's just, the thing about it is the district, they push, and I don't want y'all to think I'm bashing. But they treat everybody with this cookie cutter spoon, and they don't understand. You do not give a first year teacher a scope and sequence, a calendar for the whole year. It has to be done in bites, and especially when they're coming into an urban setting, because first of all, a lot of them are not used to working with urban kids, and that's a shock to their little systems there, because that the colleges are not preparing them to work in an urban setting. They're not going to tell them the truth unless they have substituted in schools that they are actually going to get jobs in.
Yeah.
But I really think they should scale back what they give the first year teachers in bite size and say, we're going to focus on week 1. Once we get to week 1, we'll look at 2 and 3. Here are the resources that you're going to need for this week, because even the first day of school is overwhelming.
Right.
But they just don't differentiate for the teachers, and I'm adamantly against that. I really am. Yeah. Stop doing that to them, because they're overwhelmed.
Yeah. And let me ask you guys this, because I think, Michelle, you talked about this for a little bit, the key of collaboration. Because I think you sink or swim as a new teacher based on how you collaborate, or based on who's in your building that will allow you to collaborate. And, like, the real collaboration, not necessarily just what you have to do out of compliance, but that real collaboration of, I'm going to Lori's room, I want to see what she does, I want to ask her questions, can I use your stuff, can you look at me, can you tell me what I'm doing wrong, what do you do with this student? Lori, what does good collaboration look like? As a new first-year teacher, what should that collaboration look like from a teacher-to-teacher level, but then also as the district level, as how we send people in to support teachers?
We do exactly what you were just talking about. We do have a mentor program, and so we have new teachers matched up with mentor teachers, and we have to go in at least once a quarter and do peer evaluations. And so she'll come in and watch me. We talk about what I taught, what happened, what questions they have, and then I'll go in and watch them and give them feedback. It's feedback just for them. The feedback doesn't go to the administration. Nobody sees it. It's not recorded anywhere, but it's things that they can work on, things that I notice, tips I can give them, and I think that's an important piece because I'm working with students that are similar to theirs. I have all the resources available that they have available, and so it's a real connection as opposed to going and watching someone in another district that might have a different clientele base, they might have different resources, they might have different training, and so it's what's happening in your building, which I think is a really important piece. And then just being able to have those conversations. I know when I have a mentor teacher or a teacher I'm mentoring, I go in every day and I say, what can I do for you? Yeah. I don't ask them how they're doing. I don't ask them what they need. I say, what can I do for you? Yeah. Because then it makes them reflect on what they're needing, which is a huge part of that. And some days it's nothing, and some days it's I need 10-gram pieces because I don't know where those are, and other days it's I need help with this kid because I'm at my wit's end. Yeah. And so I think it's just having that open communication of constantly touching base, not just during your team time, but during lunch or at the end of the day before you go home. How did it go? What do you need?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's really, because when I was a coach, that was my first, every morning when I went to my teachers' classrooms, I'd say, what do you need? Do you need me to do anything for you today? Because some of them were so overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. Jennifer, I know you're a mentor teacher. Mm-hmm. What do you say collaboration looks like? Because I think sometimes with the invention of PLCs, we think that, not we, teachers don't think this, but administration thinks that if you get together at a common time and you're in the same place, it's collaboration. So what does collaboration look like for you?
Well, I think collaboration, it looks like lots of different things. For me, I do best collaborating in small groups or one-on-one with people. I really dislike big, large meetings and big, large kinds of discussion groups. I don't get anything from that. So when I'm mentoring a new teacher, one or two people in a group together max, I do a lot of the things that Lori was saying. I text them a lot and just say, hey, how are you doing? How did that lesson go? Or I set up weekly meetings where we have lunch together, and sometimes we just sit and talk. And I actually just sit and listen. They talk. And they kind of dump out all the stuff that's going on, and then they can process through that. Collaborating for curriculum, I really like to not always necessarily go to the person who is in my same subject area, but to the person who has the same teaching style as I do. So I have great teacher friends who teach Spanish and great teacher friends who teach history, and we can feed off of each other, because for me it's not so much teaching the curriculum, it's teaching the strategies that I'm using for the kids to access the curriculum. I can have a great friend who's teaching Spanish and learn about how she is or he is presenting information or having the kids use a particular app or how they're working in different groups. I think it's also great for teachers to use online resources like the Educator's Room or Twitter groups. I'm in a lot of Twitter chat groups that I get tons of help from. Facebook groups. I don't have to know the people to be able to collaborate with them. And for me, to be able to do that after my kids were in bed at home when I could think during the day, I'm just go, 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 go. I can't really take the time to really process all that stuff. So finding a way that works for your learning style is really important.
I think that's really important because, I work in the district office now, and that's one of the things I try to push is that collaboration is not just a common PLC. Collaboration for a new teacher, teachers need to be able to go into classrooms, and they need to be not going to classrooms with an administrator, where they feel like they're being bullied into it, but a real collaboration. I remember my first year, I had 2 veteran teachers beside me who basically kept me from quitting. You know, they were literally just sitting there like, this is what you need to do. They would come in and correct me like, no, don't do that, do this. And I never felt intimidated. I never felt like my job was on the line. I felt support. It was just support. It was conversations. They weren't over me. They didn't evaluate me.
Right.
What I learned from those 2 women was that, you know, education, one of the ladies beside me, she had a master's from Harvard, and the other lady beside me, she had been a veteran teacher for 20 years. And what I learned from them is that they were still learning.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was okay for me to keep learning. And so I always kept that. But I see now that we think sometimes that because people go to certain schools or they go through certain programs, that they will know it all going into the classroom, but that's the tip, because a lot of times that pedagogy is missing. So I just collaboration is huge. So
Yeah, but you made an important point, and really, for me, collaboration is, am I able to be comfortable in my own skin when I'm talking to this person? And that's, for me, that's where it begins.
yeah.
Because teachers know that, and even for when teachers come in my classroom, I'm not telling you what to do. I never tell them what to do.
Right.
And like, even if I'm trying to help you present, it's about bringing your voice. I can teach you structure, but I can't make you be me. And I think a lot of instructional coaches, and when they're trying to run a PLC, they make that mistake. And they should be free to be authentic. And I think that's a lot of what has been missing. Because I started teaching in 1999, and I've seen the collaboration go away from, let's have authentic conversations, whether you agree or not. And I think a lot of teachers, you know, they get their feelings hurt, but it's not about that. We're not going to agree. Everybody has a different philosophy on how they do things, but it's what can you take from the conversation. So if I can't be authentic, there's no true collaboration.
Yeah, and I think that comes with, I think we had this discussion the other day on the board. I think it's okay to have different styles. It's okay to want to teach a different way. That's okay. We're all educated people. We should be able to say, this is what I think will work. What do you think will work? Okay, I'll take a bit of that, but I don't really like that. I'll try this. Everything is trial and error in education and going from there. So I want to kind of go into veteran teachers for a second, because I feel like new teachers, we know they'll struggle, but we have veteran teachers who, I'm in year 15 and I'm burned out and I'm back in the classroom and I don't want to be here and I don't know how I'm going to make it this year. And, you know, that's their mindset going in. What are some of the things, I want to start with you, Lori, what are some of the things that you tell a teacher who's sitting, watching our webinar, who is burned out and who's saying, I've taught 4th grade for 25 years. I'm really mad that I don't make what I should make. I'm not on my proper step. What do you say to those teachers to get ready for the new year?
I think the most important thing is to remember why you started, because you probably started for kids and you probably had a passion. Yeah. And you just need to bring that back. You need to find that thing that you love, that thing that makes you excited. A teacher friend of mine calls it teacher crack. And what is your teacher crack? For me, it's questioning. When kids ask questions, I just get so excited about that, and I love it. And if that's what you need to spend your first month focusing on, that's what you should focus on. And you need to just bring that thing into your room that's going to excite you every single day. And in my opinion, let the other BS go, because it's going to continue to be there, you know. And having been in education for 20 years and seeing the swing that we have gone so far into testing and structure and cookie cutters, that's not what education is, that's not what learning is, and we know that. So finding where you can take that control, and without being disrespectful to your administration, what can you let go of? Because it's still going to be there in September, I promise, and it's still going to be there in October. And really starting your year off with something that excites you, whether that be a chapter book that you love, or you know, if you went on a vacation, pull that in and figure out a way to tie that meaningfully into what you're doing, and start with that, and let your kids see who you are And that just sets that community up. And, you know, be yourself and be silly and have fun with your kids and start the year that way so that every day you're going in starting with something you love.
That's really good advice. Okay, so Jennifer, what would you say for the teacher who's going to start, who's in your building or who's in my building, who is just like over it? What are some of the things that they can do to kind of bring their passion back into the classroom?
Well, I think for me, I've been teaching 26 years, and every 5 or 7 years I've switched it up. I've moved to a different grade level. I've moved into a different subject level. To do the same thing over and over and over again is really going to be tedious, I think. I really encourage veteran teachers to try something new. To say, you know, this is going to be my year that I figure out how to use Google Docs, or this is going to be my year where I decide that the kids don't have to sit in rows all the time. I mean, those sound like really basic things, but veteran teachers at my school get stuck in the, well, this has always worked for me before, so I'm just going to keep doing it. And like both of the ladies have said, we've been teaching long enough to see things swing one way and swing the other, but yet the kids that we're teaching now in 2016 are really different than the kids I was teaching in 1991. And our world is different, and our parenting styles are different. So take a look at what you're doing and figure out how can you do something that's new and exciting that will make your teaching jazzed up, but will also maybe make your kids more engaged with the world, with what you're trying to present to them every day.
And I think for some people, you know, and this sounds so simplistic, but Twitter has totally changed how people feel about the world of education. Teachers feel about education, because at their fingertips you have people who are across the world who you can ask advice from, you can get resources, and you can find out new things. And I think technology is the gateway for some of those teachers. So I've known teachers who've decided to go paperless, you know, and it's like this big adventure trying to figure it out. You were going to say something, Jennifer?
And for some teachers, it has to be baby steps.
Yeah.
You know, technology for people that have been who went to college using a typewriter, that's a big step. And I've found it really successful to go in and do demo lessons for my colleagues, you know, in my English department, where I say, you know, you really should try Google Docs. But they're scared because teachers are used to being in control. And so when you're asking a veteran teacher to do something new, that's a loss of control, and that doesn't feel good. So figuring out how you could partner up with the teacher that you see that's really struggling, saying, hey, why don't we work on this together, or let's put our classes together, or on my prep period, maybe I can come in and show you how I did this. That it has really made a big difference to people that I know at my school.
And that we did that one time at our school. We implemented peer observations. Totally, principal had nothing to do with it. He got nothing that was from there. But teachers really started going into other classes and observing teachers and giving feedback and asking questions. And teachers like kind of changed overnight. They were excited, and it was something different. Michelle, what would you say for that teacher who's burnt out? I know you left one city and went to another city. Would you tell them to move, or what would you tell them?
I was that teacher. At year 9, I was like, I am tired. It pained me to go to work every day. And when they tried to lock us down for those benchmark tests, I was about going to an anxiety attack. And I had to leave. And that's why I ended up leaving Texas, and I went to Louisiana. It was close. And I had lived there previously as when I was younger.
Okay.
And I left, and what it did, it rejuvenated me, because Texas really is a cookie cutter state. And I'm not saying that the training I got, it wasn't useful. It helped me be successful, but I had hit a stagnant point, and I was saying, I'm tired of being on this mouse wheel. Well, went to Louisiana, and it was total chaos, but I loved it, and that's crazy. But it gave me an opportunity, like Jennifer said, to be creative and to do things that I wanted to do, and to try new things, because it was chaos. So what I did looked really great. So
Move to Louisiana, everybody.
That's what happens. It woke something up in me, and that's where my business was born, because it's different. And I came back to Houston as a different person, a different teacher, someone who wants out of the box. And one of the things that I noticed that is really different about me, I don't like when administrators clip my wings. If I'm trying engineering things and I'm trying different things, and I know I'm going to hit they're so worried about those standardized tests, but the children need more. I need more, and I keep telling them that. And if you don't give me more, I'm going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that sometimes, and I don't know if it's because teaching is a majority women are the majority in the field, but I think a lot of times we get comfortable, and so that burnout becomes more inevitable because we do the same thing because it's comfortable.
Yes.
We're good at it, but changing a grade level, changing cities, starting a business, starting a TPT store, starting a blog, these are things that are new, that'll make us start learning again. And people, it's so totally simplistic, but it's genius. We don't ask attorneys to sit and practice law from the time they become a lawyer to the end. There's an expectation they're going to be a judge. There's an expectation they may go teach. There's an expectation they do other things. So I think in teaching that we have to figure out some ways to keep great teachers in the classroom, but to make things different for them so that they can continually learn, because that's how you want to stay, through the learning. So last but certainly not least, I know it's getting late, as you go into the 2016-2017 school year, what's the one hope that you have for your fellow teachers? Jennifer, start. What's the one hope that you have?
Wow. Well, I think my hope for next year is that we can all figure out a way to continue to bring what's happening in the real world into our classrooms in a way that we're able to connect with our students, show that we care about them, show that we understand the problems that are going on in our homes, in our communities, in our country, and try and figure out a way that we can help each other learn that we're more alike than we're different, and that by working together, maybe we can come up with a way for kids and people to feel safe and happy as we go through this very interesting year that we have ahead of us, and really to focus on the kids and the relationships and do what's making everybody feel safe and connected to somebody in their community.
That's a really good one. And maybe like everybody from across the nation, I know Lori's in Kansas, Michelle's in Texas, you're in California, but like people become pen pals. I remember going to school and we had pen pals. And we would write them, and they would write us, and we'd be so excited, like, oh my God. So just letting kids know that, yeah, you might look different, you might sound different, but we bleed the same. We're the same. We're the same. So Lori, what is your hope for the 2016-2017 school year?
I think my hope for teachers this year is that they find the courage to really become student-centered classrooms. There is a fear in getting rid of and letting go of that control as an educator, and I hope that teachers can see the value of student-centered rooms and find the courage to let the students lead the learning and lead the classroom setup, whether that be through flexible seating or student choice. I just really hope that they have the courage to turn some control over to students and become student-centered.
Yeah, and it's really hard because you think the kids are going to burn down the building. You were like, I don't know if they can do this, but you have to let them go. We have to let them go. And I'm saying that from a parent also. I'm saying that from a parent perspective also. Michelle, what's your hope for the 2016-2017?
My hope for the 2016-17 school year is for authentic collaboration, where teachers can share, and there are no lone rangers, and we are a team, because you are only as strong as your weakest link. And in urban education, it is killing us because we do not collaborate. One of the things that teachers tell me when they leave is that there's no support. And today was our last County Department of Education. And one thing I did tell them, I said, from one educator to the other, what you do is important. I need you and I value you. And that's the message I really want to send to teachers and all my colleagues next year, because I do need them. We need each other.
And I think that's so important, because sometimes we feel like we can shut our doors and teach. And that goes good for a while until you get that big hiccup and you're like, okay, what do I do now? Or, okay, I don't know how to handle this. And so collaboration is key. We always used to have work BFFs. You know, there's just like that's work BFF, and we go to each other's classrooms and kind of vent and figure out what to do. So I think teachers need it. I think my hope is that teachers really understand like that we are the experts and we have to use that expertise to our advantage. To change some legislation that is severely limiting learning and going towards testing. So that is it. You guys, I'm going to list everybody's blog in the show notes. I can't talk tonight. In the show notes. So you guys, thank you for visiting, and you will be able to see this video in about 25 minutes. You guys hold on for just 1 second.